The restraints around my wrists snap open before I even understand what is happening, and a voice made of static and cold light fills the room around me. Genetic echo detected. I am on my knees on a metal floor that hums beneath me, and the light above my head is not a light at all. It is a scanner, wide and blue, sweeping down over my body like something reading the inside of my bones. Around me, 3 of them stand very still, tall, narrow shapes wrapped in pale gray coverings, with faces that never seem to finish forming an expression. The Ashari, that is what they call themselves. I have been their prisoner for 11 days, though on this ship there is no sun and no night, so I only know it is 11 days because I have counted every meal. Until this moment, they have treated me the way you treat a stray animal that wandered into a warehouse. Something to be processed, tagged, and filed away. I am not dangerous to them. I am not special to them. I am cargo. Then the light turns from blue to a hard, flickering red, and everything changes. One of them, the one with a voice box built into his throat plate, steps back so quickly that he knocks over a tray of instruments. The clatter echoes through the chamber, and for a moment nobody moves. I stay on my knees because I do not know what else to do. My heart is beating so hard I can feel it in my ears. The scanner speaks again, and this time the words settle over me like something with weight. Genetic echo detected. 12 matches. Extinct apex predators. Point of origin, planet designated Earth. Confidence rating, absolute. I do not understand the words at first. Extinct apex predators. It sounds like something out of a museum plaque, not something that belongs inside my own body. But the Ashari understand it immediately, and the way they react tells me more than any translation could. The tallest one, the one they call Corex, presses both hands flat against the console and leans in close, staring at numbers I cannot read. His voice, when it comes, has lost the flat calm it always carries. "This cannot be correct," he says. "Run it again." The machine does not argue. It simply repeats itself, the red light pulsing faster now, like it is excited by its own discovery. Confirmed, 12 distinct genetic markers. All predator lineage, all extinct, all present, in dormant form within the subject. Subject, that is me. I have been a subject since the day their ship pulled my transport pod out of the wreckage of the evacuation fleet, but until this second, being a subject felt small. Now the word feels like it is being reconsidered. Corex turns to look at me, and for the first time since I arrived on this ship, he actually looks at me. Not through me, the way he usually does, like I am furniture that occasionally needs to be fed. He looks at me like I might be something he has never encountered before, and I watch a flicker of something pass behind his eyes that I can only describe as fear, quickly buried under professional interest. "Explain," he says, though I am not sure if he is speaking to me or to the machine. The machine answers instead. Human genetic structure carries residual code from ancestral competition events. This subject retains unusually complete fragments. 12 separate predator lineages, all extinct on the home planet within the last 50,000 years, are represented in viable, awakenable form. I do not know what half of those words mean, not really, not in that moment, but I understand the shape of it. Somewhere inside me, buried under skin and thought, and the ordinary business of being a person, there are pieces of things that do not exist anymore, things that used to hunt, things that used to be feared. Corex straightens up and looks at the other 2 Ashari, and they have a conversation in their own language, fast and clipped, full of sounds my ears were never built to sort into meaning. I catch nothing except the tone, and the tone is somewhere between alarm and greed. I try to speak, and my voice comes out smaller than I want it to. "What does that mean?" I ask. "What is happening to me?" Nobody answers. Corex taps something on the console, and the red light above me shifts again, this time splitting into 12 separate strands of color, each one hanging in the air like a thread of smoke. I stare at them without understanding, and then the machine speaks one more time, and this time it is not speaking to the Ashari at all. It is speaking to me. Subject is conscious and cognitively eligible. Awakening protocol requires subject consent. Present selection. The 12 threads of light rearrange themselves in front of my eyes, and for just a moment, each one flickers with an image. A shape with curved teeth longer than my hand. A shadow with wings wide enough to blot out a sky I have never seen. Something low and heavy, and built entirely of muscle. I do not know what any of them are. I only know that looking at them makes something in my chest tighten, like my body recognizes them even though my mind does not. Korek steps closer to me, and his voice has changed again, smoother now, almost gentle, the way you talk to something you are trying not to spook. You have been given a rare opportunity, he says. Most of your kind carry only fragments too damaged to use. You are whole. We can awaken one of these lineages within you. Strength beyond anything your species currently possesses. You would be valuable, protected, elevated above the other humans on this vessel. I want to laugh, except nothing about this feels funny. Elevated. He says it like a gift, but I can hear what sits underneath the word. A weapon. They want a weapon, and they are dressing the offer up as a favor. I look past him, at the 12 threads of light still hanging in the air, patient, waiting. The machine speaks one final time, and its voice is flat and simple, and somehow the most honest thing anyone has said to me since I woke up on this ship. Which one do you want to awaken? I do not answer right away. I look at my own hands, the ordinary human hands that carried me through the evacuation, that gripped the edge of a crashing transport pod, that have done nothing remarkable in 26 years of living. I think about my mother, who used to say that people survive because they adapt, not because they are the strongest thing in the room. I think about every story I ever read as a child about the animals that used to walk the earth before humans took their place at the top of everything. 12 of them, 12 different apex predators, extinct, and somehow still folded up inside my own blood, waiting for permission to wake up. I open my mouth to answer, and I do not know yet what I am going to say. The room is silent except for the low hum of the scanner, and the quiet, patient breathing of 3 aliens who are waiting to see what kind of animal they have actually captured. The 12 threads of light hang in front of me, and I realize I am not looking at pictures. I am looking at memories that are not mine, offered up by the scanner like items on a shelf, each one waiting for me to reach out and take it. Korex crouches slightly, bringing his narrow face closer to mine, and I can see now that his patience is running thin. Choose, he says. The process is simple. The scanner isolates the lineage you select and begins expression. You will feel changes within the hour. I ask him the only question that matters to me right now. What happens to the other 11? He blinks, and I realize the question surprises him. They remain dormant, he says, unless you choose again later, which the protocol does allow, though repeated awakening carries increasing physical strain. I look back at the threads of light. One of them flickers and shows me a creature with teeth, like curved knives, built for a single devastating strike. Another shows something with wings so wide it could carry off a grown animal without slowing down. A third shows a shape low to the ground, thick with muscle, built to outlast anything that tried to outrun it. 12 different ways of being dangerous. 12 different ways of surviving a world that wanted you dead. And I think about the fact that my species is the only one, out of everything the Ashari have apparently catalogued across every world they have touched, that carries the memory of 12 extinct hunters and still walks around soft-skinned and unarmed, laughing at jokes and raising children and building houses that keep the rain out. We do not look dangerous. We have never needed to look dangerous, because somewhere along the way we stopped needing sharp teeth to survive the things that had them. Korex is still waiting, and one of the other Ashari, the smaller one with dull green markings along her jaw, leans toward him and speaks in their language again, low and urgent. I catch one word I have started to recognize from my time aboard this ship. Contain. She is telling him to contain something. Me, probably. I decide, in that moment, that I am not going to give them what they expect. I do not choose one, I say. The chamber goes very still. Korex straightens, and his expression, if you can call it that, hardens into something closer to irritation. That is not a valid selection, he says. I did not say I refuse, I tell him, and my voice is steadier now than it was a few minutes ago. I said I am not choosing one. I want to understand what I am choosing between before I let it change me. The machine, to my surprise, responds to this. Subject requests additional information prior to selection. Protocol permits limited disclosure. Korex looks like he wants to argue with a machine, which strikes me as a strange thing to watch, an alien who commands a starship losing an argument with his own equipment. But he steps back, arms folded, and the threads of light begin to shift and separate, spreading out around me like a slow, glowing circle. The scanner speaks, and as it does, each thread brightens in turn. Lineage 1. Felid apex predator, saber-tooth structure, optimized for explosive short-range attack, exceptional bite force, poor endurance. The image sharpens for a moment, and I see something huge and golden furred, with teeth that curve down past its jaw like a pair of blades. I feel something strange happen in my chest as I look at it. Not fear exactly, more like recognition, like my body already knows the shape of this creature from somewhere deep and wordless. Lineage 2. Avian apex predator, giant raptor structure, optimized for aerial hunting, exceptional vision, limited ground combat capability. A shadow with wings, dropping out of a gray sky, talons extended. Lineage 3. Reptilian apex predator, monitor structure, optimized for ambush and venom delivery, moderate speed, high patience threshold. Something low, scaled, moving with terrible slow confidence. The scanner continues, and I watch each one in turn. A wolf built larger than any wolf should be, made for hunting in coordinated groups. A bear-shaped predator with a face built for crushing rather than tearing. A great cat, built for endurance instead of speed, able to run for hours without tiring. A creature that lived mostly in water, with a bite that could break bone in a single motion. Something with a long neck and a beak built like a spear. A burrowing hunter, built low and wide, made for chasing prey into tight spaces. A creature covered in armored plates that could still move with surprising speed. A pack hunter, smaller than the others but faster, built entirely around teamwork and relentless pursuit. And the last one. Lineage 12. Hominid apex predator, archaic human structure, optimized for endurance, tool use, and cooperative long-range hunting. No single physical advantage recorded. Extinction cause unresolved. I stare at that last thread longer than any of the others. It does not glow the way the rest do. It looks almost plain compared to the sharp teeth and wide wings and armored plates of everything else on that list. Just a shape, upright, unremarkable, walking steadily forward. No single physical advantage recorded, I repeat quietly. Korex makes a small, dismissive sound. That lineage is considered the weakest of the 12, he says. We recommend against it. It offers no combat enhancement worth the strain of awakening. But it survived, I say. All the others on this list are extinct. That one is not. That one is the reason I am standing here at all. Nobody answers me, because nobody can argue with that. I think about my grandmother, who used to tell me that the reason humans took over the whole world was never because we were the strongest, or the fastest, or the most dangerous animal in any given forest. It was because we were the ones who kept getting back up, the ones who remembered, the ones who worked together long after every other predator had given up and gone home. Every one of those 11 other lineages had some single, spectacular advantage, and every one of them is gone. Only the plain one, the unremarkable one, made it all the way to me. I look up at Korex, and I ask him something I already suspect he does not have a real answer for. If your ship has scanned other species before mine, I say, has anything else you have ever tested carried this many predator lineages at once? He hesitates, and the hesitation tells me everything. No, he admits finally. No species we have encountered carries more than one or two dormant lineages, and rarely in usable condition. Most have lost the genetic material entirely through generations of stability. Your species retains an unusual density of ancestral survival code. Because we never stopped needing it, I say, mostly to myself. The scanner's light pulses once, patient, waiting for my decision the way it has been waiting this whole time, indifferent to the conversation happening around it. I look at the 12 threads one more time, and I understand something I did not understand when this began. This is not a test of which predator I want to become. It is a test of whether I understand what my own species actually is. Not a soft, harmless thing that stumbled into being the most successful hunter this galaxy has apparently ever measured. A thing built out of every single one of these lineages, layered on top of each other, generation after generation, until the sharp teeth and the wide wings and the armored plates were no longer necessary, because we had already learned to become something better than any single advantage. I take a slow breath, and I speak clearly enough that the scanner has no trouble recording it. Awaken all 12, I say. The silence that follows is so complete I can hear the hum of the ship's engines through the floor. That is not permitted, Corex says quickly. The strain of simultaneous awakening on an unmodified human body would very likely be fatal. Then start with the one you think is weakest, I say, nodding toward the 12th thread of light, the plain upright shape that outlived everything else on that list. Start with the one that is already sitting inside every single human who has ever lived. Start with the one that got us this far without any of you noticing it was there. The Ashari exchange, another quick, tense conversation in their own language, and this time I do not need to understand the words to know what is being decided. Corex finally turns back to me, and there is something new in his expression now, something that was not there before. Caution. Very well, he says. We will begin with lineage 12. The scanner's light shifts, gathering itself, and I feel the first faint pull of something changing deep inside my chest. Quiet at first, like a door easing open somewhere I did not know existed. The pull in my chest turns into heat, and the heat spreads outward through my arms and legs so fast that I gasp and grip the edge of the metal table beside me. Corex steps back, watching a display only he can see, and the smaller Ashari, the one with the green markings, moves to a safer distance near the wall. It does not hurt exactly. It feels more like waking up twice in the same moment, once in the ordinary way, and once in a way that reaches all the way down into places I never knew were asleep. My vision sharpens first. The dim gray light of the chamber suddenly has more detail in it than I am used to, edges and textures I would have missed a minute earlier. My hearing follows, and the low hum of the ship's engine splits apart into a dozen separate sounds, vibrations moving through pipes, footsteps 2 decks below, the quiet electrical whisper of the scanner itself. Subject vitals stable, the machine reports. Lineage 12 expression, at 11% and increasing. Corex studies the readout with an intensity that borders on disbelief. Cardiovascular efficiency rising, he mutters, more to himself than to me. Muscular endurance markers rising. This is not a strength enhancement. This is something else. I flex my hand and feel it. A strange new steadiness running through my fingers, like my body has just remembered how to be patient. I am not stronger in the way the golden-furred creature with the curved teeth would have made me stronger. I do not feel faster or bigger. What I feel is different, harder to describe. It is the sense that I could keep going, past the point where I would normally stop, past tired, past hungry, past afraid, and just keep moving, because moving is what I am built to do. Explain what is happening to me, I say, and my voice comes out steadier than I expect. Corex glances at me, and for the first time since I arrived on this ship, he actually answers a question honestly instead of dismissing it. Lineage 12 does not grant a single dramatic advantage the way the others would, he says. It grants efficiency across every system simultaneously. Endurance, recovery speed, pain tolerance, cognitive clarity under stress. It is a generalist structure, built to sustain prolonged effort rather than deliver a single overwhelming strike. That is why it survived, I say, mostly to myself. It never needed one big advantage. It only needed to outlast everything that did. The smaller Ashari, still standing near the wall, speaks up, her voice carrying a nervous edge I have not heard from her before. "Overseer," she says, addressing Corex directly, "the containment protocols for this specimen should be reviewed. If the remaining 11 lineages are ever activated in sequence, the cumulative effect is not something our current restraints were designed to hold." Corex waves a hand, dismissing her, though I notice he does not fully relax. "We are far from that outcome," he says. "One lineage, partially expressed, does not constitute a threat." I decide not to correct him yet, because the truth is I do not fully understand my own new limits either. But something in the way my body has settled tells me he is underestimating what has just happened. I feel calm in a way I have not felt since the evacuation. Calm the way a person feels when the fear finally has somewhere useful to go, instead of just sitting in their chest, doing nothing. The scanner speaks again. Lineage 12 expression at 32%. Recommend pause for physiological stabilization. Continue the process, I say. Corex frowns at me. "You do not control the pace of your own awakening," he says. "The protocol determines safe intervals." I look directly at him, and something about my own expression must have changed, because he takes half a step back before he catches himself. "I am not asking you for permission," I say. "I am telling you what I want, and you already know this scanner listens to consent. Mine, not yours." For a long moment nobody speaks. Then the scanner, indifferent to the tension in the room, simply resumes. Lineage 12 expression continuing. The heat spreads further, down into my legs, up along my spine, and with it comes something I was not expecting at all. Memory. Not my own memories, not exactly, but something adjacent to memory. Flashes of sensation that feel inherited rather than lived. The feeling of walking for days across open ground, following the trail of something too far away to see. The feeling of sharing food among a group larger than a single family. The feeling of watching a much bigger, much more dangerous animal, and understanding calmly that patience and numbers would eventually win where speed and strength could not. I press a hand to my chest and steady my breathing, and I realize I am smiling, just slightly, in a way that clearly makes Corex uncomfortable. "What is happening?" he asks, and I notice it is the first time he has asked me a question instead of simply issuing an instruction. "I am remembering something I never lived," I tell him. It is hard to explain it any more clearly than that. He studies me for a long moment, and I can see him recalculating, the way you can watch someone quietly rebuild an opinion in real time. "When we first began cataloging your species," he says slowly, "our assessment classified humans as low priority, physically unremarkable, minimal defensive capability, a species that survived primarily through numbers and technology rather than biological advantage. That assessment was correct," I tell him. "It just was not complete." He does not answer that, and I do not push him to. The scanner's light finally steadies, and the heat in my body settles into something quieter, less like fire now, and more like a low current running just beneath my skin, always present, never quite fading. Lineage 12 expression complete, the machine announces. Stabilization achieved. Subject condition, optimal. Corex checks his readout one more time, and whatever he sees there makes him go very still. Her reaction time has increased across every measured category, he says, mostly to the other Ashari, though his eyes stay fixed on me. Her recovery from induced stress is nearly instantaneous. Her cognitive processing under simulated threat conditions exceeds baseline human performance by a significant margin. I flex my hands again, testing the new steadiness in them, and something in me wants to prove what I am feeling instead of just describing it. I look at the tray of instruments Corex knocked over earlier, still scattered across the floor near the console. Without really deciding to, I reach down, pick up one of the fallen tools, a slim metal probe about the length of my forearm, and turn it over in my hand. It is heavier than it looks, and my grip on it is steady in a way that surprises even me. "Put that down," Korek says, and for the first time there is something close to alarm in his voice. I set it back on the tray, gently, deliberately, because I want him to see that the steadiness in my hands is not aggression. It is control. There is a difference, and it is a difference I suspect the Ashari have never had to think about before, because every other species they have modified probably reached for a weapon the moment they felt strong enough to hold one. I am not going to hurt anyone, I tell him, not unless I have to. He studies me for a long moment, and something behind his flat gray eyes shifts again, that same careful, recalculating look. Noted, he says finally, though I can hear that he does not entirely believe me, or perhaps does not entirely know what to believe anymore. The smaller Ashari steps closer to the console, glancing between me and her readouts with an expression I am starting to recognize as genuine unease. Overseer, she says quietly, if this is the result of a single partial awakening from what the scanner itself classified as the weakest of the 12 lineages, I would advise extreme caution regarding the others. Korek nods slowly, still watching me. Agreed, he says. This subject will require reclassification. I almost laugh at that. Reclassification, as if I am a piece of cargo whose label was simply wrong, rather than a person whose entire species has apparently been misunderstood since the moment their scanners first found us floating in the wreckage of our own broken fleet. I look down at my own hands one more time, ordinary-looking, unremarkable, no claws, no scales, nothing that would make anyone glance twice at me in a crowd, and I think about the 11 other threads of light still waiting inside me, dormant, patient, each one carrying the memory of some creature that eventually could not keep up with the plain, upright shape that outlasted every single one of them. I am not finished, I tell Korek, and I watch him understand, slowly and with visible reluctance, that I am not asking him a question anymore. Behind him, through the narrow viewport set into the chamber wall, I catch a glimpse of the corridor outside, other cells lining the far wall, other shapes moving behind reinforced glass. Human shapes. I have not seen the other prisoners since I arrived, not clearly, but now, with my new eyes, I can make out details I could not have caught before. A man pacing slowly near the edge of his cell, a woman sitting very still, watching the corridor with the kind of alertness that tells me she has not stopped paying attention since the moment she was taken. Dozens of us, scattered across this ship, each one carrying the same 12 dormant threads I carry, and none of them aware yet of what is folded up quietly inside their own blood. Korek follows my gaze, and something in his posture tightens, as though he has just realized the same thing I have. This was never going to be about one specimen. This was only ever going to be about how long it took someone to ask the right question, and how long it took someone else to actually answer it honestly. The scanner's light dims slightly, settling into a steady, watchful glow above my head, waiting, the way it has been waiting this entire time, for whatever I decide to do next. Korek orders the chamber sealed for the night cycle, though night means nothing on a ship with no sun, and I am left alone with the hum of the engines and the quiet, steady current still running beneath my skin. I do not sleep. I do not think I need to, not the way I used to, and that alone tells me something has shifted in me that goes deeper than muscle and reflex. Instead, I sit against the cold wall of my cell and let myself think about what the scanner told me, and about what it did not need to tell me at all, because somewhere underneath the surface of my own mind, I already understood it. Every species the Ashari have catalogued carries pieces of its own evolutionary past, fragments of ancestors long gone. Most of those fragments are broken beyond use, worn down by generations of stability, of safety, of a world that stopped demanding constant adaptation. But my species never got that kind of rest. Earth kept throwing new dangers at us, one after another, and every single time, instead of dying out the way 12 different apex predators eventually did, we found a way to keep going. I think about the creature with the curved teeth, built for one explosive, devastating strike, and how something that specialized eventually could not survive when its prey grew too fast, too clever, too well organized to be caught by ambush alone. I think about the wide-winged hunter, built for a mastery of the sky that meant nothing once the world beneath it changed faster than its wings could adapt. Each one of those 11 other lineages was extraordinary in its own narrow way, and each one of them eventually ran into a world that no longer had room for creatures built around a single advantage. And I think about the 12th lineage, plain and upright and unremarkable, that outlived every single one of them, not because it was the strongest thing in any given fight, but because it never stopped changing. It learned to use fire. It learned to make tools. It learned to hunt in groups that shared information across generations, so that no single hunter ever had to relearn everything from nothing. It learned, more than anything else, to cooperate with other members of its own kind long enough and well enough that the group became more dangerous than any individual predator could ever be alone. That is what the Ashari do not understand yet, and I suspect it is what none of the other species they have catalogued ever understood either. Humanity was never a single apex predator. Humanity is what happens when a species survives every single apex predator it has ever encountered, one after another, by refusing to be defined by any one of them. A soft chime interrupts my thoughts, and the door of my cell slides open just enough to admit the smaller Ashari, the one with the green markings along her jaw. She steps inside quickly and lets the door hiss shut behind her, glancing back at it as though she is worried someone might be watching. I did not expect a visitor, I say. Her name, I learn, is Vesa, and she speaks quietly, her voice low enough that I have to lean forward slightly to catch every word. I am a genetic analyst, she says. I have spent the last several hours reviewing every record we have of species similar to yours across every world our fleet has surveyed. I need you to understand something before Corex decides what to do with you. I wait, because something in her tone tells me this matters. No species we have ever encountered carries this many viable ancestral lineages, she says. Most carry one, occasionally two, and only in fragments too degraded to safely awaken. Your species carries 12, fully intact, and the fact that lineage 12 alone produced the response we witness today suggests the remaining 11, if awakened in careful sequence, could produce something far beyond anything our fleet has ever classified. Beyond how? I ask. She hesitates, and when she answers, her voice drops even lower. Beyond containable, she says. Corex believes he can control this process. I do not think he understands what he is actually holding. I study her carefully, trying to work out whether this is a warning meant to help me or a warning meant to help her superiors prepare for something worse. I do not know you well enough to know why you are telling me this, I say. She meets my eyes, and something in her expression, alien as it is, looks almost like guilt. Because I have reviewed the records of every species we have modified this way before, she says, and in every case where the subject was not given a genuine choice, the result was catastrophic, for the subject and for us. I do not want that outcome here. I would prefer this end differently. I think about that for a long moment, about the difference between a gift and a weapon, and about how much of that difference depends entirely on who gets to decide what happens next. What do you want from me? I ask her. I want you to understand your own leverage before Corex finishes deciding how to use you, she says. He has already sent a report to Fleet Command describing your genetic profile as a potential asset class. If that report is approved, you will not remain a specimen aboard this vessel much longer. You will be transferred to a research facility with far fewer restrictions on what can be done to a subject in the name of controlled study. Something cold moves through me at that, cutting straight through the steady current still humming beneath my skin. And the other humans on this ship, I ask, are they at risk of the same thing? Vesa's silence answers the question before she says anything at all. Every human specimen aboard this vessel will be re-evaluated under the new classification protocol, she says finally. If even a fraction of them carry lineage density, similar to yours, which our early data suggests is likely given the consistency of the pattern across your species, Fleet Command will consider your entire population a resource worth harvesting rather than a species worth studying. I feel something shift inside me, something that is not fear exactly, but is closely related to it, sharpened by a clarity I do not remember having before today. Harvesting, I repeat quietly. She nods, and I can see that even saying the word out loud makes her uncomfortable. I do not agree with this direction, she says, but I am not in a position to stop it alone. I sit with that for a long moment, turning it over, and I think about the man pacing his cell down the corridor, and the woman sitting so still and so alert, and however many dozens of other humans are scattered through this ship, each one carrying the same 12 dormant threads that I carry, none of them aware yet of what is folded up quietly inside their own blood, or of what is about to be decided about their future without their consent. I am not going to let that happen, I say. Vesa studies me carefully, and something in her posture straightens, as though she has been waiting to hear exactly those words. Then you should understand what awakening the remaining lineages would actually cost you, she says. Corex was not lying about the physical strain. Simultaneous or rapid sequential awakening carries genuine risk, but sequenced correctly, spaced to allow stabilization between each expression, the human body can integrate all 12 lineages without catastrophic failure. I have run the models myself, quietly, without Corex's knowledge. Why would you do that? I ask her. Because I wanted to know if it was possible before anyone decided it should never be attempted, she says simply. And because watching you today convinced me that whatever your species actually is, it is not what any of our records currently describe. I look at her for a long moment, weighing whether to trust an alien who works for the very people holding me and everyone I know prisoner. But something in the careful, deliberate way she has laid all of this out in front of me, risking her own position to do it, tells me she is not lying, or if she is doing it in a way that costs her far more than it costs me to believe her. Show me the sequence, I say. She produces a small device from beneath her coverings, its surface lighting up with a soft, steady glow, and begins to explain, quietly and quickly, the order in which the remaining 11 lineages could be safely awakened, one after another, each one building on the endurance and stability already established by the 12th. As she speaks, I feel that steady current beneath my skin begin to hum a little louder, as though some part of me already recognizes what is coming and is impatient to begin. Outside the sealed door of my cell, the ship continues its quiet, endless hum, carrying dozens of sleeping, unaware humans through the dark between stars, each one of them closer than they know to becoming something the Ashari never expected to find when they first pulled a handful of broken transport pods out of the wreckage of an evacuation fleet. I look down at my own hands one final time before Vesa finishes explaining the sequence, and for the first time since this began, I do not feel like a prisoner waiting to be classified. I feel like someone standing at the very beginning of something the rest of this ship has not yet found the words for. Vesa returns before the next work cycle begins, moving quickly through the corridor with the small glowing device still in her hand, and this time she does not wait for permission before opening my cell. Corex has approved a transfer order, she says, her voice tight with urgency. You are scheduled to be moved to the research facility within the next 2 rotations. Once you leave this ship, I will no longer have access to your case, and neither will anyone else who might argue in your favor. Then we do not have much time, I say, and I am surprised by how calm I sound, given everything she has just told me. She activates the scanner built into the wall of my cell, the same kind of device that first found the 12 threads of light hanging inside me, and begins keying in the sequence she explained the night before. I do not fully understand every step of what she is doing, but I trust the steadiness in her hands, the same kind of steadiness I recognized in my own hands after the 12th lineage first settled into me. This will not be gentle, she warns. Even sequenced correctly, awakening 11 additional lineages in rapid succession will place enormous strain on your system. I can slow the process, but I cannot make it comfortable. I nod. Begin, I say. The scanner's light flares to life above me, brighter than before, and this time there is no single thread of color drifting patiently in the air. All 11 remaining lineages ignite at once, layered one on top of another, and the heat that spreads through my body this time is nothing like the quiet warmth of the first awakening. It is fire, moving through muscle and bone so fast that I have to press my hands flat against the floor just to keep from losing my balance. Lineage 1 initiating, the scanner announces, its voice steady even as my vision blurs. Felid structure expressing. I feel something sharpen behind my eyes, a narrowing of focus so intense that the entire chamber seems to slow down around me. Every movement of every object suddenly easier to track, easier to predict. My hands curl slightly, and though nothing about their shape has changed, I feel the memory of a strike, fast and total, sitting coiled and ready just beneath the surface of my own intention. Lineage 2 initiating, avian raptor structure expressing. My vision sharpens further, colors growing more distinct, distances suddenly easier to judge, and for one disorienting moment, I feel something like the memory of height, of open air beneath me, of watching the ground from far above with total, patient clarity. Vesa monitors the readouts with visible tension, her hands moving quickly across the console. Vitals holding, she reports, mostly to herself. Continue. Lineage 3, reptilian ambush structure expressing. Something settles into my patience, deep and unhurried, a willingness to wait without moving, without tiring, for as long as necessary. Lineage 4, wolf pack structure expressing, and with it comes an awareness of space around me that stretches outward, as if I could sense the position of every other person in this room without needing to look at them directly. Lineage 5, ursine crushing structure expressing, and my body settles lower, steadier, heavier, in a way that has nothing to do with actual weight and everything to do with a kind of grounded, immovable calm. The chamber grows warm around me, and sweat runs down my back, but I do not stop, and I do not ask Vesa to slow down, even as lineage after lineage ignites inside me, each one layering new instinct over the last. Endurance built for running for days without rest. A bite force memory that settles somewhere deep in my jaw without changing its shape. A patience built for waiting motionless in cold water for longer than any warm-blooded creature should reasonably survive. A reach and a strike pattern built around a long, spear-like precision. A low, burrowing persistence that refuses to be driven off once it has decided on a target. An armored calm that does not flinch at threat. A pack coordination so complete that I feel, for just a moment, like I am standing in a room full of people who are not actually here, moving with me anyway. Lineage 12 already integrated, the scanner reports as the final thread settles into place. All 12 lineages now expressed. Stabilization required. I collapse forward onto my hands and knees, breathing hard, every nerve in my body lit up with sensation I have no name for yet. Vesa rushes to my side, checking the readout with an expression somewhere between relief and disbelief. All 12 integrated without catastrophic failure, she says quietly, almost to herself. I did not think it would actually work. I push myself back up onto my feet, slower than I expect, testing the strange new weight of everything now humming beneath my skin. I do not feel like 12 different animals stacked on top of each other. I feel like myself, entirely myself, except that every instinct I carry now has somewhere new to go, some deeper well to draw from when it matters. The chamber's alarm begins to sound before either of us can say anything else. Unauthorized genetic modification detected, a new voice announces, cold and mechanical, cutting through the low hum of the ship. Security response initiated. Vesa's expression shifts instantly from relief to alarm. Corex must have flagged the scanner the moment it activated outside approved parameters, she says quickly. We need to move. I do not feel panic the way I would have felt it a day ago. Instead, I feel that steady current beneath my skin sharpen into something focused, something ready, and I understand, with total clarity, exactly what I need to do next. Get the other humans out of their cells, I tell her. All of them. I will handle whatever is coming through that door. She hesitates only a moment before nodding and slipping out into the corridor, and I turn to face the sealed entrance of my own cell just as it begins to hiss open, revealing two armored Ashari security officers stepping through with restraint devices already raised. I do not reach for a weapon, because I do not need one. I move the way something inside me now remembers how to move, low and fast and utterly without hesitation, closing the distance before either officer can fully register what they are looking at. I do not hurt them, not really. I simply move past their defenses the way water moves past stone, redirecting their own momentum until both of them are disarmed and pressed harmlessly against the wall before they can trigger their restraints. It is over in seconds, and I stand in the doorway of my own cell, breathing steadily, feeling the full weight of everything now living inside me settle into something calm and controlled rather than wild. Down the corridor, cell doors begin sliding open one after another as Vesa moves quickly from one to the next, and human faces I have never seen clearly before step out into the light, confused, wary, and then, one by one, alert in a way I recognize immediately, because I can see the same steady current beginning to hum beneath their skin too, the moment the ship's own scanners register their presence and begin, almost helplessly, to read the same 12 dormant lineages waiting inside every single one of them. A man near the far end of the corridor, tall and steady-eyed, looks down at his own hands the way I looked at mine hours earlier, and I watch understanding settle slowly over his face. Behind him, a woman with sharp, watchful eyes steps forward without hesitation, already moving like someone who has spent her whole life waiting for a moment exactly like this one. I realize, standing there in that corridor full of newly freed prisoners, that this was never going to end with one specimen quietly reclassified and shipped off to some distant research facility. This was always going to end with an entire ship full of aliens slowly, and far too late, understanding exactly what kind of species they had actually pulled out of that wreckage. Corex's voice crackles through the ship's intercom, tight with barely restrained alarm. "Security to detention level immediately," he orders. "Full containment protocol, all cells, all specimens." I look down the corridor at the growing crowd of humans gathering behind me, each one steadier by the second, and I feel something settle into place inside my chest that has nothing to do with any of the 12 lineages now humming beneath my skin, and everything to do with something far older than any of them. "We are not specimens anymore," I say, loud enough for everyone behind me to hear. "Not one of us." And together, we move toward the sound of Corex's voice. The corridor fills with the sound of alarms as we move, a low, pulsing tone that seems to come from every wall at once, but none of the humans behind me slow down. I count them as we pass through the detention level, 9, then 14, then more joining from side corridors as Vesa continues releasing cell after cell ahead of us. Every face I pass carries the same look I must have worn an hour ago, disbelief settling quickly into something steadier, something ready. A woman with short dark hair and sharp, watchful eyes falls into step beside me. Her name, she tells me quickly, is Grace, and she was taken from the same evacuation fleet I was, though from a different transport pod. "I do not know what is happening to me," she says, glancing down at her own hands, "but I can feel it. Whatever they did to you, it is happening to all of us now." The scanners read every human on this level the moment we came within range of the security alert, I tell her. "It is not something they did to us, it is something we already were. We are only waking up to it now." She absorbs that quickly, the way I am starting to notice all of us absorb things quickly now, without the long pause for disbelief that used to slow everything down. Behind her, a man named Daniel, broad-shouldered and quiet, nods once and says nothing, but I can see the same steady current settling into him, sharpening his focus, straightening his spine. Corex's voice comes through the intercom again, and this time there is no mistaking the tension threading through it. "All security personnel, converge on detention level immediately. Specimens have breached containment." "Specimens," Grace repeats under her breath, and I hear the edge in her voice. The same edge I felt when Vesa first told me what Fleet Command intended to do with all of us. "We are not specimens," I say again, louder this time, and the words carry down the corridor, picked up and repeated by others as we move, until it is not just my voice saying it, but a dozen voices, then 24, echoing off the metal walls in a rhythm that sounds almost like something ancient, something that used to be shouted across open ground by hunters, coordinating without needing to see each other clearly. We reach the junction where the detention level opens into the ship's main corridor, and that is where the first wave of Ashari security officers meets us, armored and armed, restraint devices raised, clearly expecting the kind of chaotic, frightened resistance you would get from any ordinary group of frightened prisoners. What they get instead is coordination. I do not give an order, not exactly, but something passes between the humans around me anyway, an understanding that settles into place the way a flock settles into formation, without any single bird calling out instructions. Daniel and 2 others move left, drawing the attention of half the security line. Grace and a smaller group move right, flanking wide along the edge of the corridor. I move straight down the center, calm and unhurried, and I watch the Ashari officers hesitate, just for a moment, confused by a pattern of movement that does not match anything in their training. That hesitation is enough. We move past their line before they can properly close it, disarming rather than harming, redirecting rather than striking, because none of us actually want this to become something bloodier than it needs to be. I feel the 12 lineages inside me working together the way Vesa said they would, endurance carrying me through movement after movement without tiring, patience holding me steady even as adrenaline floods through everyone around me, coordination linking my instincts to the instincts of the humans moving beside me, until the whole group starts to feel less like a crowd of escaped prisoners and more like a single, distributed organism working toward the same goal. "Corex," I say into the nearest comm panel as we pass it, loud enough that I know the ship's systems will carry my voice straight to the bridge. "You spent 11 days cataloging my species as unremarkable. I want you to understand what you actually found." There is a pause before his voice returns, tighter now, less certain than it has been at any point since I met him. "You are still vastly outnumbered aboard this vessel," he says. "This resistance will not succeed." "We are not resisting," I tell him. "We are leaving. And every ship you send after us from this point forward is going to meet more of us than you expect, because every human your fleet has ever scanned or ever will scan carries exactly what I carry. You did not find one dangerous specimen, you found the truth about an entire species you decided, 11 days ago, was too soft to matter." Silence follows, long enough that I wonder if the comm channel has been cut. Then Vesa's voice comes through instead, quieter, calmer than Corex's had been. "The shuttle bay is 2 decks below your current position," she says. "I have already redirected security response away from that route. It will hold long enough for all of you to reach it. Come with us," I say, without hesitating. There is another pause, shorter this time. "I cannot," she says, "but I will make sure the record of what happened here is not buried the way Corex would prefer. Someone in this fleet needs to understand what your species actually is before another ship makes the same mistake his did." We move quickly toward the shuttle bay, the group behind me growing steadier with every step, every human aboard this vessel now awake to something that has been sleeping inside all of us for longer than any of us ever knew. When we finally reach the bay, and the wide doors slide open onto a row of small transport shuttles, I turn back for a moment and look at the corridor behind us, at the ship that spent 11 days deciding we were harmless. I think about the 12 threads of light that first appeared above my head in that cold detention chamber, each one belonging to a creature that no longer exists anywhere in the universe except folded quietly into the blood of a species those creatures once tried, and failed, to outlast. I think about how every one of those 12 predators eventually ran out of road, while the plain, upright shape that carried pieces of all of them just kept walking, kept adapting, kept finding a way through. Grace steps up beside me as the others board the shuttles, and she asks the question I can feel every single person here, silently asking themselves. "What happens now?" she says. I look out through the wide bay doors at the dark scatter of stars beyond the ship, and I think about every other human still out there, across however many other Ashari vessels, still uncatalogued, still unaware of what is quietly waiting inside their own blood, still one honest scan away from an answer none of their captors are prepared to hear. Now, I say, we make sure every one of us gets asked the same question I was asked, and this time, we already know the answer. We board the shuttles together, 12 threads of ancient, extinct hunters folded quietly into every single one of us, and as the bay doors open onto open space, I do not feel like a specimen escaping captivity. I feel like something far older than that ship, older than the fleet that sent it, finally standing back up after a very long, very patient wait. Behind us, somewhere deep in the ship's systems, I imagine the scanner logging its final report of the day, updating a classification that Fleet Command is about to discover was wrong from the very beginning. Not harmless, not unremarkable, not a specimen at all, just patient, which it turns out was always going to be enough.